and welcome to In Touch with Partners for Quality. I'm your host, Shelley Duffy. It's safe to say that children are one of our most precious commodities. Children in need, even more so. We'll explore that topic today as we revisit a member of the Partners for Quality family of nonprofit agencies. Milestone Centers primarily serves Western Allegheny County, providing residential and community-based supports to people with intellectual and developmental disabilities and behavioral health challenges. During the next half hour, we will focus on Milestone's Host Home program. Host Home supports local kids with behavioral health challenges who need temporary out-of-home placement in a stable, caring environment. We'll talk about exactly what that means, and joining me today are Erica Butler, Director of Children's Services at Milestone Centers, and David Fath, Assistant Executive Director of Behavioral Health and Drug and Alcohol Services at Milestone. Erica and David, welcome, and thank you so much for joining us today.
Hi, Shelley.
Thanks, Shelley.
It's so good to be back and be able to do this again, and it's wonderful to see you both. Even though via Zoom, it's still wonderful to be back at it. And I guess we want to get started with you, Erica, and we want to talk about the basics. What's the Host Home program? Tell us all about it.
Sure. So Milestone's Host Home program is where we assist families in supporting children that need temporary out-of-home placement. So sometimes when you have children with emotional or behavioral diagnosis, they just need some extra support. And sometimes it's best to have that support in another home with a trained host home family to support that child until they're safe and met their goals to go back to their natural family.
And David, tell us a little bit how it came about, how it all started.
Well, so I've been with Milestone for going on 25 years now, and the Host Home program preceded me. So it's been around for a long time. It became licensed more than 30 years ago now. We are licensed by the state of Pennsylvania as a host home provider. It's a program that's always been one of the favorites of the board of directors and the administrators, just because of the power that providing this service has on families and children. It's one of those programs that everyone loves to brag about. There have only been 3 directors of this program in all that time, and only a handful of long tenured staff over all those years. And most of the families that we've had in all those years have, they've been there for a majority of that time. I think that the long tenure of the staff and the families speaks to the value of the program that we've been around for so long. We've had a lot of success over the years. We don't have time to talk about tonight a lot of success stories, but suffice it to say we are very proud of all the accomplishments of the staff, the families, and especially the children who through the program have learned, grown, recovered, and returned to live with their parent or guardian. It's been a long haul, and we're still happy to be doing the service.
How would you say it's evolved, though, over the years? Are you able to talk about that a little bit?
Sure. So, the whole system has evolved a bit. There was no managed care when we first started. Not that managed care necessarily plays a role in this program, but the whole system looked very different, the way we treat kids. I think that one of the big changes is that, Milestone has developed a trauma-informed care bent. We are a sanctuary certified organization, which I will talk about later. The training has evolved. I think the host home clinicians have over the years improved how they provide the service. It's been a slow evolution, but it still has the same basic premise that it did in the beginning, which is, what Erica was talking about. We care for these kids and hope to return them to their families better than when we got them.
What geographic area do you serve?
Sure. So we are proud to serve children in Allegheny County.
And are there any outlying programs or anything like that, or is it just strictly in Allegheny County?
Yeah, so we are contracted with the Allegheny County Department of Human Services to provide the service. It doesn't mean we can't stretch beyond our boundaries, but for the most part, we are here to serve children who are residents of the county, and we want to keep them close to home, where their school is and where their families are, where they grew up, where their friends are. So we serve this general area.
I can imagine that is so important to them. Now, what is the average stay like with a family? How long?
Sure. So each family and each child, of course, is different and has their own goals. But for our program, we like to see a typical length of stay anywhere between 6 and 24 months, which I know is a huge range. But again, everybody is different, and we really work with the child and their natural family, as well as their host home family, to meet all of their goals. And reunification with the natural family is always the program's goal as well.
And that's just it. I mean, and that is something that you have to, again, I would assume that that's the goal from the beginning. And that's probably why there's the range that there is, simply because it takes, each individual may take a shorter amount of time, others may take a longer amount of time. And it's good to know that, yes, the reunification of, with the natural family is exactly what the goal is.
Yes.
Now, we talk about caring families that are needed, obviously, to make the host home program work. So what other qualifications are necessary? Let's talk about what it takes to be a family that takes in one of these children.
Sure. So I think before anything else, a real care and a real concern for children in your community is a necessary quality to have in any of our families. The will and the want to make a change. Specifically, you do have to pass all of your background checks, and that's just for the state of Pennsylvania. All of our host home families are well trained, so we keep all of our families up to date on the most current research, on interventions, on how to best work with any child in their home. And we also, do our regular safety walkthroughs with our family. That's a monthly, to make sure everybody's home is safe for these children. But first and foremost, we are always looking for families with the passion in their heart to make a change in these children's lives, because that's what our families really do.
Talk a little bit about the process, though, if you don't mind, about what happens, once you've chosen a family, or just how does that process work? How does that all happen?
Sure. So I think step one would, for anybody that's interested, would be to reach out to myself so we can have a conversation about what the steps look like. It usually starts with an application. We always run clearances, as I mentioned before, and then we'll go from there. So we'll talk about training. We'll talk about, what type of children that you feel like would be best suited in your home. Do you have other children in your home? What will that transition look like? So we really like to be involved in every step of the process, and not make it so fast that you're overwhelmed, but not make it so slow that, you're constantly waiting and wondering what's going on. So we really like to find a good balance so that everybody, including the potential child, feels safe and comfortable with this transition.
Now, do they receive any kind of stipend to help with costs and that type of thing? If you're taking someone into your home, obviously it's going to cost a little bit of extra money.
Yeah. So each of our families receive a monthly stipend. Normally we just do direct deposit, and that's really to just make sure that no one's burdened, that everyone's comfortable in the family. So like I said before, we want to make this a smooth transition. We want to make sure the children in our community that are welcoming into these homes are well taken care of.
Let's talk a little bit about the expert team members that you have on hand to help with the entire process, and I'm sure there are many.
Sure. So here at Milestone, we have leading the team would be David, who oversees all of our behavioral health services. I am the director of children's services. I have a master's degree in marriage and family therapy, and I'm licensed in the state of Pennsylvania. And underneath me, we have host home clinicians, which are master's level staff with experience in child development. And then we also have our support team, which is our administrative assistant, who makes sure all of our paperwork is clinically appropriate and documented correctly.
And what is it about this particular role, about this particular job that each one of you, and Erica, we can start with you.
Sure.
What is it that you love about it?
Sure. So I could go on, but I
well, please
think
do.
One of the main reasons
We love to hear it.
for time's sake is just watching a child transform. So I think there's something really magical about taking a child that's struggling for any reason and putting them in a home that can really help them thrive and teach them the skills they need to go back to the people that they love. And that transformation, there's nothing better in the world.
All right. And David, how about you?
Yeah, it's hard for me to say anything differently, really. I said we had success stories over the years, and it was always that real sense of just sheer happiness and joy that you can help someone to change their life. I mean, especially with the kids. Most of them have gone through a lot of trauma. All of them in the program have experienced some form of trauma, and to see them learn to regulate emotion, function within a family unit, and improve so that they can go back to their family, their guardian. That makes it worth it. That's it, really, in a nutshell.
What are some of the specific reasons that these kids come to you?
Sure. So there's lots of different reasons. So one of the main reasons we see is that mental health can be very difficult and very overwhelming for families. It really does take a village to support a child that is struggling in any capacity. So that could be at school, that could be at home behaviors. We see a lot of different reasons for referrals for our program, but the main core reason is that the family needs support. And sometimes it is just by taking that child and putting them in a different environment with staff that are really specifically trained for that diagnosis and to help with mental health. And sometimes that really just makes all of the difference.
And again, what are the age ranges with these kids?
Sure. So we typically see anywhere from 5 to 6 to 18. Of course, other considerations can be made, but we typically like to stay in that range.
And how is it that they are placed with you? How do they find out about you, or how do you make the decision of who is able to come to you?
Sure. So first and foremost, one of the main decisions is whether or not we have an open family. So that's why the recruitment aspect and the always looking for, wonderful homes to open up their hearts and their homes for these kids is so important because the more homes we have, the more children that we can place. Most of our referrals we get are from CYF or from the Office of Behavioral Health. But we do have parents that, sort of call and self-inquire as well. And we have no issues with that either.
All right. Well, we're going to take a quick break. And after the break, we'll take a closer look at the role of the host home family. We want you to stay right there. You're watching In Touch with Partners for Quality. Welcome back to In Touch with Partners for Quality. I'm Shelley Duffy. Today we're talking about a vital service for local young people experiencing behavioral health challenges, the Milestone Center's Host Home program. My guests are Erica Butler, Director of Children's Services at Milestone Centers, and David Fath, Assistant Executive Director of Behavioral Health and Drug and Alcohol Services at Milestone. And again, thank you both so much for being with us today. I wanted to ask, is the program open only to families, or if you're a single parent, for example, is that something that it can be considered as well?
Sure, excellent question. So we actually get this a lot, and anybody can be a host home parent. Single parents, big families, LGBTQ families. We are really looking for anybody that has a spot in their heart for a child.
And that's the thing. Anybody who loves a child, and again, that's going to be something that, all the background checks, we want to make sure our children are safe, obviously. But I would think that that's just something, if you love a child, if you, want to open up your heart and your home, whether you are single, whether you're with a family, I think that's just a wonderful thing. And that's awesome to know that, it's opened on every aspect. Now, we talked about how the host home program works, obviously. Let's talk about the host home families and what are some of the amazing things that come as a result from being a family.
Oh my goodness. Again, I could go on, but I will save you my soapbox. But some of the
We love hearing soapboxes. Don't worry. We love that.
Yeah. So some of the amazing things that a host home family gets is watching a child and really changing the life of a child. And I'm not really sure there's many better things in this world than changing the life of a child. You get to be part of a treatment team. So you're never alone. We offer a lot of support, and I'm sure we will get to that, but you're never alone. And like I said, you really get to be in there with the child and change their life.
Well, you just mentioned the supports. Tell us a little bit about that. And you said that they're never alone. In what ways do you mean by that?
Right. So when we have a host home family, our program really prides itself on making sure that family feels supported. So that support looks like 24/7 on call through our clinicians and through myself. So if a family at 3 a.m. had a concern or had a question, we're available. We always rely on our trainings for our host home families. So I talked about that a little earlier. So we always, have our families rely on those trainings, being trauma informed, as David mentioned earlier. And that support from our team is really, really vital to our program.
Now, from the time that someone contacts Milestone, about how long is it then until they're able to be matched with a young person and start working their magic and helping and doing all the things that they want to do?
Yeah. So normally we'd like to see about a month. And that really just depends on the length of time we can get our clearances back. So we are bound to make sure those clearances come back nice and clean before we take any steps further. And with COVID, that process has sort of slowed, but we really like to keep it about a month.
And what role, and I think this is very important, does the biological family play? I mean, are they able to see the child? Do they visit the child? Do they have a say in what's going on? How does all of that work?
Yes. So our biological or natural family is really interwoven into everything we do regarding their child. So throughout this process, their child is always theirs. So one of the main things we do is we have monthly team meetings to go over the child's treatment plan that has been developed. And the natural family is always invited to those meetings. They have the opportunity to bring up concerns, any praises or things that are going well, and really be a part of that team. as well as we always encourage frequent visits with the natural family. We encourage the child to go home and practice those really awesome skills that they've been learning in their host home, and then take them home for a visit so they can, sort of show off their new skills that they've learned. So we make sure these things happen throughout the process. So when it is time for discharge, everybody is comfortable and everybody is ready to have the child come home.
All right. Now, David, you had actually mentioned this a little bit earlier in the show, too, and we had talked about it in another show, Milestone being certified by the Sanctuary Institute in providing trauma-informed care. Can you remind us about what that means and tell us a little bit about why it's so important to the kids and the families?
Sure. So Sanctuary is an organizational change model based in trauma-informed care. So it's based on the principle that trauma is pervasive, and those who are treating individuals who have experienced trauma need to approach everything they do through that lens. So we start by asking the question, what has happened to you, rather than what is wrong with you? And this sort of sets the tone for everything that follows. We need to do our best to ensure that we not only address trauma from a clinical perspective, but we also ensure that we don't re-traumatize people by behaving in a way that is not safe and welcoming. All of our staff are trained in Sanctuary, everyone from the front desk staff to the clinicians to the maintenance crew to the administrators, including our host home clinicians and families. Sanctuary not only helps to provide better service to our clients, but it also helps staff to better manage their own emotions and get along with each other, with their coworkers, with their friends, with their families. It helps everybody to manage their lives better. The tools have been invaluable for us, and it really does help us create a safe environment for children.
And I'm sure, too, that if it wasn't the case, and you said that the entire staff, everybody from the front desk and everyone in between, I mean, I would assume that the setbacks could be, tragic. They could be just devastating for families.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, again, like I said, trauma is pervasive, and it is one of the reasons why the Sanctuary Institute or the Sanctuary model was developed was recognition that we do re-traumatize people all the time, and we don't treat them in ways that will necessarily help them to deal with their trauma. So all those things happen, and that's why we selected this as our a way to really change the way we provide service at Milestone.
Now, the Host Home program has had a wonderful track record, and I know you guys have some success stories. I'm sure you do. Maybe if each of you could share one with us, that would be wonderful. Just to give people an idea, like just the realness and just exactly how you can help.
Sure. So I'll go ahead and start. So we can discuss a story about a girl named Kim. So Kim came to us with a lot of anxiety. Her parents had recently been divorced, and Kim's anxiety would flare up in school. Her grades started slipping. She started having a really rough time. She wasn't playing sports anymore. She was completely withdrawn from the things that she used to like. So we got Kim's referral and we placed her in a home. And Kim thrived. So within a really short amount of time, I think it was around 8 or 9 months, we really saw Kim starting to implement her coping skills. So through her host home family, she learned about bubble breathing, which is breathing on a count or on a cue to regulate your body's own breathing. And she also saw a therapist outside of her host home family. And when Kim returned home, she was ready to be there. She was thriving back in her community. Her soccer team had missed her. And we were really, really proud of the progress that she had made.
Anxiety is something that we hear so much about,
Yes.
especially these days, and especially with even younger and younger kids. And so learning how to cope with that early on, It must be such an amazing skill, and that you're able to use that throughout the rest of your life. I mean, that's phenomenal. So,
Absolutely.
and David, how about you? I know you have to have a success story.
Yeah, I didn't really come prepared to give specifics today, but I do, I will say I do remember a child that we had in the host home when I was a frontline worker many years ago, and she is now employed in this field, and we actually have contact with her on a fairly regular basis. That's a very general story, but she went on to be really rather successful. So. And I don't know if Eric, if you had any other specifics, but there are others.
Yes, like I said, my soapbox can be ready anytime. Let me know.
We have less than a minute left.
Yes,
but what
I'll
makes
save you.
what makes you stand out? If you can just sum it up very quickly, either one of you.
I would say passion, a real genuine care and concern about these children. David and I both live in these communities, so we really eat, sleep, and breathe Pittsburgh, and we deeply care about the kiddos that live here.
Oh, such a wonderful, wonderful thing that you do. And tell our viewers again one more time, if they'd like to get more information, how can they do so?
Sure. So milestonepa.org is our website. That's a great place to start. If you're ready to start having conversations or have any questions about specifics, you can give me a call, 412-660-3626, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
All right. Thank you both so much. My thanks to Erica Butler and David Fath for joining me today. The Host Home program is vital to local kids in need. If you want to get involved, please contact Milestone Centers today. And to learn more about Partners for Quality, visit pfq.org and look for Partners for Quality on Facebook too. I'm Shelley Duffy. Thanks so much for joining us.